What is good, everybody? Thank you for choosing once again to spend another Wednesday night with us here at Fantasy and Frames. And welcome to yet another edition of Dynasty 365, the flagship Dynasty fantasy football show here at Fantasy and Frames. If you are watching live on YouTube right now, the best thing that you can do to support us is like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you never miss when a new show drops here at Fantasy and Frames. And tonight, last week we went over some advice for you contenders out there, and then tonight we will be going over how to approach rebuilding for Dynasty Fantasy Football. Always a hot button topic leading up to the draft this time of year, contending versus rebuilding. If you would like, beyond just the shows, if you would like some written content and written discussions, please head over to our site, fantasyandframes.com. We got all sorts of articles for you there. Redraft, Dynasty, IDP, you name it, we got you covered. And if you're looking for specific player takes and debates, you're in luck because our first batch of rookie rankings are live from our 5 main analysts and rankers, myself, JT, Joe Harlow, Drew Scott, and of course, Jorge Edwards. And then we combine the 5 of us for a nice, clean FIF consensus, we call it. So, I'm your host for tonight, Aiden Weinginer. And with me, of course, as always, I got Justin Taylor. I say let's just hop into things. What do you think, JT?
Sounds good to me, man.
Yeah, so we're going to start off with the time period of rebuilding. Knowing when it is time to hit the reset button and rebuilding. Because some people aren't quite at the top, but some people aren't quite at the bottom of the barrel, if you will, either. You don't want to be stuck in mediocrity, though, year in and year out. At least in my opinion, that's the absolute worst spot to be in Dynasty as of today. So, JT, I want to pose this situation in question to you. In your mind specifically, when is it time to start rebuilding in Dynasty? And specifically, how long is too long to drag it out and keep putting it off, would you say?
I think you really have to take a look at the league you're in, and then you have to decide what is everyone else doing and where you're at. So I'll give you an example. So I have a team that I've been in like top 4, 5, 6 in a 14-team league for the last 5 years. Now my team has got really old last year. I had Derrick Henry, David Montgomery, a bunch of older players, right? And so I had to look at it and go, okay, can I compete one more year or not? I probably stayed in the mix for an extra year or two just because I got beat to the punch on the rebuild, right? I had like 4 teams that already decided, like, I'm out. We're dropping all my best players. I'm going for draft picks. So that slowed my rebuild process because teams already beat me to it. They had already started loading up draft picks. They'd already started hitting. So I'm like, I'm a contender to make the playoffs. And again, if you can make the playoffs, you can be in the mix. Now, are you the best team all the time? Maybe not, but you can still be in the mix. Eventually, I finally said, hey, I can't hold off any longer. I got to make moves. Last year, that's what I did. Sold everybody away at the trade deadline or right before the playoffs. Got a bunch of draft picks. Still had like the 1-6, right? Because everybody else bailed and was already beating me to it. Now, if you can still make the playoffs and go, I'm still in that move. But you've got to be very careful about the longevity of your team. If you look at your team and you're like, if everything goes right, if no one gets hurt, I'm possibly a top 6 team. Then you're like, ooh, it's probably already time to start hitting that rebuild before that. Because what ends up happening is you get 2 guys hurt and your team's done because you don't have any depth. If you've got depth and you can still hang, you want to compete as long as possible. So I'm one of those guys, I hate bailing really early, but sometimes you have to look at the makeup of your league. And if no one else has really bailed yet, or you have those leagues like some of my home leagues where guys just don't want to give up. They just are like, no, I'm in it. Even though they're not in it, They
Denial,
think they're in it. They're not in it, but they think they're in it every year. Then you can probably delay a rebuild, or you could probably jump into a rebuild faster because those guys are holding out hope. So I really think you have to read the room of your league, right? Like who's already in, who's out.
Absolutely.
Guys who are like refusing. They've not made the playoffs in 4 years, and yet they still won't trade away their top
Next
asset.
year's the year.
Yeah, exactly. So those guys, you're going, okay. So you gotta look at your team and kind of look at them next to those guys. And then if you feel like you're right on that edge, then you go, okay, maybe I go first. You always want to be the first guy in the rebuild and not the last guy in the rebuild. Because the last guy, you're like, I'm rebuilding and I'm still getting the 1-6.
Nobody left. Yeah.
You're like, that's not good. I don't want that. You want to get a higher pick. So I did that in my 2 QB home IDP league. And I know we're just talking regular dynasty, but same difference.
Same thing, yeah.
I had made the playoffs every year. I'd finished top 4 every year in this league since its inception. I got off to a terrible start 2 years ago. I ended up coming through with a monster run at the end of the year and made the playoffs, but then I lost first round of playoffs, right? So the next year going in, I was like, okay, let me look at this team. I might want to jump on the rebuild early, and that's what I did. I sold off Kirk Cousins. I sold off Tyreek Hill. I started getting rid of guys that were like the main part of my team for the last 4 years. But I was like, ooh, I want to get out on these guys a year early before it's too late. And because I did that, I absolutely melted down last year. My team sucked. First time I ever missed the playoffs in this league. But I turned around and won the league this year because I sold off just enough guys to get higher picks and my team was deep that I was able to keep rebuilding. And then I was able to turn around and trade some of those draft picks away. Once I knew my team was good, I was able to trade away some of those draft picks for a Derrick Henry and a guy that could win me the title. So I think you got to really, it's tough as a set, like this guy, do this. But you really got to read your league. And I think that's really important. Don't bail too early, but also don't like just blow it up to blow it up. If you're still in the mix and everybody else has already blown it up, there's no reason to. You might as well keep acquiring assets and stay in it as long as you possibly
know your surroundings. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, we'll talk more as we keep going throughout the show. We'll hit more of these details, but that's my kind of overall consensus of like, you really need to know your league and figure out what your league mates around you are doing. And that can push you one way or the other. Hey, do I stick in it for another year? Or is it time to bail a year early, knowing that if not everything goes right, I'm probably in trouble this year unless it goes perfectly, which we all know how fantasy goes. It never goes perfectly.
Never does,
yes. Guys always get hurt. Stuff always happens. So if that's the case, you're like, okay, now it might be time to start that rebuild. Or like I did in some of my leagues, if you do it right, you can rebuild right back to the championship, with multiple teams in my leagues have done, where they finished either last or close to last and turn around and win a championship the very next year because they did it right. They did a nice sell-off but got guys back, and then when their team got healthy, they were ready to roll again.
Yeah, speaking of ready to roll again, Kyle Ziegler here joining us. Quickly, Kyle, how are you doing tonight?
Man, I'm doing great. Nothing like being a guest on your show and being 10 minutes late. My bad on that.
Hey, you're totally fine. I was late. I was at a junior high basketball game. I was sprinting home and then realized I didn't have my computer. And I'm like calling my girlfriend. I'm like, I left my computer in your car. So Kyle, that's the theme of the night, but we're here. The show is going. We're okay. We're running.
Yeah.
I can breathe now. We're going. All right.
Yeah.
Let's roll.
JT, Kyle, we were just touching on when to know when to rebuild in Dynasty, and I'll get to you in a minute, but I just wanted to say, I look at it like this. Let's say you barely make the playoffs for 3 or 4 years in a row. You're on the fringe of making or missing the playoffs every single year in a row. You might think, oh, I'm close. I'll do it next year. Oh, I have to acquire this. I have to acquire that. Fill this need, that need. But if you're close, you're really not close. You're stuck in mediocrity every single year. And as I said at the top of the show, that's the absolute worst, at least in my opinion, worst spot to be in Dynasty. You're not a true contender where you can trade talented veterans to fill needs. but you don't have high enough rookie picks. You're kind of just stuck in the middle. So, Kyle, before we move on to our next discussion point, do you have anything to add in terms of when do you think it is appropriate to start rebuilding in Dynasty? Like, when is it time to start over and reset?
It's kind of like you got to look at your team, right? You got to kind of know, is this team falling? Is it competing? You just kind of have to, like, you don't want to keep going years and years and years of losing before you realize it. You got to catch it early. You can kind of see when your team is aging, when you have those aging teams, you always want to try to get younger. So you always try to be one step ahead of being old. So you just got to kind of gauge it and be honest with yourself that this team is time to rebuild.
Yeah.
You just got to be honest with yourself.
Yeah, great conversation.
And Aiden, I was going to say, to go into your point, if you're just barely making the playoffs every year, you got to look at how you're making the playoffs. Are you still in it? Because I have to tell you, I've won a lot of leagues as the last seed in the playoffs, where I was the last team in and I won it all. So you got to look at, like, realistically, like, okay, as this team gets in, could it do damage? Do I have the type of players that could blow up and win it for me? Or am I like, I'm making the playoffs, but I'm limping in and I'm in, but like I'm almost looking at my team, unless guys play out of their mind, there's no way I'm going to win. So I always think that's like one of the things you got to look at too, because I have won a bunch of leagues as the last seed in, especially here. I always talk about this too, especially if you're in a league where one of the last two spots or the last spot is points scored. Because you might have a terrible record, but if you can get in as the point scored guy, then to me, that's a big difference. I've made leagues, I've made the last seed, and I was like second to last in points, and I made the playoffs, and I'm like, this team is finished. I'm going to get smoked. Because I know my team's not very good. I got lucky week to week with the wins. But if you're that team that finishes, you only win 3-4 games, but you make the playoffs because you had fourth most points, that's something you got to look at, because that's just bad luck on the win-loss, but you're in the mix points-wise, and all you need is one guy to get knocked off, and now all of a sudden you're the guy. You're in the mix. So definitely look at that, and definitely look at injuries. Injuries are key, because I've had teams where it was a bad year, but like everybody was hurt. CMC was hurt. Jalen Warren's hurt. I'm playing like absolute third string, fourth string running backs. Well, that team's still in the mix. Now, maybe do I trade off one or two older pieces to get younger and better? Yes, I don't necessarily blow up my whole team. So you got to look, because sometimes there's like, I mean, we've all been there. Sometimes it's like, blow this whole thing, like get rid of everybody. I want nothing but draft picks for the next 3 years. This team is screwed. But you also, there's those times where you're like, ooh, if it wasn't for certain injuries, something going this way, that way, one or two players might put me over the top. So you got to look at that as well. You don't want to just say, I missed the playoffs, I got to blow everything up. You got to really evaluate your team and how the season played out. It might be one of those things like bad luck, an injury here or there, or you would have been like the third or fourth seed, as opposed to like, I made the playoffs and my team's horrible, but we went off straight record and I just lucked out that I played everybody bad every week. And I had like the second least points possible scored this year, but I made the playoffs. Like, that's a big difference to me than I missed the playoffs, but crap, I was like fourth in the league in scoring and I just had a bad week to week on that.
No, that is completely fair and all great discussion points. Moving on from a philosophical discussion and approach to how to rebuild right off the bat and know when it's time to do so. Moving over to veterans and how veterans fit in this whole rebuild equation, this whole puzzle, if you would rather. Kyle, since you're with us now tonight, I would like to ask you specifically, in your opinion, can veterans still fit on a quote-unquote rebuilding roster? If so, how?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, even in a rebuild, you need some reliable production, so your roster isn't like a total wasteland. They prevent you from being forced into like bad desperation trades as well. Veterans are flip assets as well. Your roster vets. Yeah, your roster vets, because contenders out there, they will always pay up more in the mid-season or right before that deadline. So they can be a valuable asset. Injuries hit, bye weeks hit. It causes desperation, trade offers now, so they are important. And with all that said, you have to be able to tank with purpose if you're rebuilding. You don't buy the wrong veterans. The wrong vets are expensive, declining, hard to trade later, scoring points but not gaining value. So like maybe touchdown dependent type veterans. In a rebuild, I want veterans who will either hold value or can become valuable. And basically, to put a bow on it, guys, yes, veterans, they fit on a rebuild. If they are either stabilizers or trade chips, if they can be flipped later, they're usually, they're usually just slowing down the rebuild if they're not in this category. So yes, I believe they can be an asset.
JT, any thoughts on that topic?
Yeah, I don't mind getting some guys if they're cheap, and that you like Kyle said, like you get them for a reasonable price. You just, if you're in a rebuild, you just can't be giving them like first and second round picks. Like if if somebody's like, hey, this running back's real old, I'll take a third, like mid or late third rounder for him or something.
Sure, yeah.
Like I can understand, like, okay, he's a decent plug and play for me this year. He's probably not going to be awesome for me, but he can give me a little something. I definitely think you go for those guys. You just don't want to. I mean, the worst thing you can do is go out and pay a big price for a guy 2 years too early. Like, you're like, I'm rebuilding. I'm probably 2 years out. I'm going to go buy AJ Brown for a first. Like, it's probably not the move. If you're like in the mix, like, okay, maybe you pay that price, but you don't do it when you're out. And you got to look at it, like I said, you got to look at it with your league. If you're in a smaller league, say like a 10-team league compared to like a 14-team league, those things make a big difference because you can make turnarounds in like a 10-team league a lot faster than you can in like a super flex or 2 QB 14-team league. Now you're like, oh, getting a QB is going to be a nightmare. I'm going to have to look into the luckiest pick, hope I get a high guy, and then hope he actually is any good. So those things are harder as opposed to a 10-team league super flex. You're like, you can more easily swing that around because, again, if you have a couple injuries, but your team's been good in the past, it might just be like, you ran into bad luck, a couple bad injuries, which I brought up before. I had a CMC, Jalen Warren, and then I traded off like James Conner and a couple other guys when I knew I was like screwed because they were all hurt. I'm like, I'm going to trade those guys because I'm going to bomb as much as I can the rest of this year. But I didn't fully trade everybody because I knew I was like, I'm going to take like another good example. It's like I took a Puka in that trade because he was on IR at the time. And somebody else was like, oh man, I'm in the points race. I need points. I can't just sit on Puka for 6 weeks. And I'm like, I can sit on Puka for this year because like I'm out of it anyway, but he's going to crush for me next year. So you got to find like those. Maybe we have a second about that. I'm sorry I didn't look at it, but figure out those trade partners at the right time is another big one. If you guys want to get into that, like get guys that are out when someone else is desperate and they're like, oh, I got to move this guy. Even though I love him, I need to move him because I need the points now. That's when you can get some steals, especially if you think you're going to rebuild. That's my favorite time to go out hunting, right? Go out looking for those guys on IR. Ooh, I'll trade you Isaiah Pacheco for whoever who's like hurt, Okay, I need the points right now. Like, give me that guy. Or I think I was the opposite. I got Pacheco when he was hurt, knowing that there's no way I was keeping him on my team. I got him because I was like, I'm going to turn around and flip him for a second as soon as he gets healthy to somebody who's going to make a playoff run because I know I'm out of it. So that's one of those things you got to look at too. Like, who are guys that maybe be hurt that you can acquire and hold, or who can you acquire and then turn around and get rid of before the year's out to someone who might need them.
Well, JT, let me ask you this since we're kind of on this topic. I don't mean to go off script here, but
go ahead. That's fine.
Cool. Because, we're talking about this, JT, and there might be some people out there that are thinking, What do I do in a rebuild when I have that veteran that I can trade? And let's say I can get a first round pick or a second round pick, right? For, I don't know, whoever, but I'm looking at this 2027 class and it's supposed to be a lot better than what this one is. So if you're in a rebuild, there might be somebody out there thinking, well, do I trade for a 2026 first, or is a 2027 first more valuable? Where are you on that, JT, for somebody who's rebuilding that could have a better 2027 first round pick with a better talent? Where are you at on that versus this year?
I'm in total trade 2026 pick mode if you can. And okay. I always say that, I feel like I say this every show. I'm a huge rookie guy. I love rookies. I want as many draft picks as possible because I want as many, dart throws as I can get. This is one of those years, though, if people get fired up about somebody and they get fired up in the drafts and I can move a guy for next year, I'll move a guy for next year. I like 27 better. This is not one of my favorite classes, to be honest with you. There's some guys I really like in this class, but as I was going through my teams this last weekend, I'm like, oh, man, I did trade away a ton of 2026 picks for either 25 or 27 picks because I love the 25 class. So I was like, oh, I'll give you a 26 second for your 25 third. And people were like, oh, yeah, sure. I'm like, boom, take that guy I love. Oh, I'm going to give you my 26 fourth for your 25 third. Or like stuff like that. I'm like moving guys. If I can move back and just delayed 1 year on the rebuild, I'm doing it. If I can get some people who's like, oh, I can get that guy. If I can move back a year, I'm definitely moving back a year. Now, NIL is messing with people. Now, we can't have to talk about that. We can't say there are guys staying that usually probably you would see go, right? Because they're getting paid so much to stay in college. So some of these 27 guys we think we're going to get might end up getting to 28. But I'm willing to take a shot at 27. This is the crazy thing. This is how I'm at for 27 right now. If I won my league and I have like the 112, I'm probably offering that up for a 27. If somebody won't give me a 27 first, if somebody won't give me a 27 first, I'm at the point where I would maybe ask for a player and a 27 second for that first. For sure. Like I would rather get that mode. There's just not a ton of guys I love in this draft class. Now, I think there's going to be some guys that surprise us, but pre-draft, I know you're taking a chance on the trade. You're always taking a chance when you trade pre-draft, right? You don't know where these guys are landing.
Yeah.
This is the year where I'm like, I feel like the guys that I really like have to have prime landing spots to be worth what they're going for. So I'm like, I am almost willing to make the move and just take the chance that they don't necessarily have a great landing spot, and I'm in it for next year, or I got extra bonus players, or if I can get, if somebody, this is probably, I haven't looked at the trade value in a minute, so I'm going to just say this. If I could get like AJ Brown for like an early 2026 second, I'm buying that in 0.2 seconds. Even as a contender, I'm selling my late first for him. And I saw people just trying to give away AJ Brown last year, honestly, in a lot of leagues. But I just don't love this class. And honestly, I hate to say it because they're just they hit so little. I'm almost rather draft in the third and fourth round in this draft because there's guys I like that are dart throws late. Then I'm like, I'm not going to feel bad if they don't hit. But man, those guys in the first and second, if they don't hit, I'm going to be real pissed. And I'm like, I'd rather be like, okay, I'm out on those guys. Let me take the dart throws late and let me move my capital to next year. So I'm with you on that. Especially if you know you're way out, I don't even mind trading for some 28s. Like I've done that in a few leagues where I know this team, like I took over an orphan that's a disaster. And I'm like, I'm trading away my studs. I'm going to get every 27 and 28 pick I can get. I know it's 2 years out. A lot of people don't like to do that, but I'm like, this team needs a whole overhaul. I don't mind waiting a little bit because I knew my team wasn't competing. So it does take a little bit to hold on. Like those guys seem so far away, but that's where you can win though, because some people don't want to wait that long. That's just like too outside their purview to be like, oh, I can maybe get this guy in 2 years. Yeah, but you also could trade a guy to a contender who might ends up bombing after this year, and you end up getting the 1-1 or 1-2 in 2028. That's happened to me before. I sold AJ Green the last year. Everybody thought he was coming back for injury. He was going to. I stole him to the guy that was in first place in the league. I ended up getting what ended up being should have been the 112, right? It was the pick the year after. I took it 2 years away. I ended up getting Trevor Lawrence with the 1-1 2 years later. So, like, those things, now that doesn't always work out. That's prime example of like when it works out perfectly. But you got to think sometimes that these guys are going for it all. They might bomb in 2 years. It might be better off for you taking a pick 2 years down the line, especially if it's a contender now. And you look at their team, they're like, oh, they're kind of old. That could end up being a high pick in 2 years. Another example, and I'll shut up and let you guys go.
That's okay.
I had a guy that went undefeated, won the league 2 years ago, went to the draft. He wanted to make moves, traded me a 2026 and a 2026 first and second for Christian Kirk. I'm expecting those late picks. His team got injured. Everybody fell apart. He finished second to last. I turned in Christian Kirk into the 1-2 and the 2-2. And when I made the trade, people are like, oh, well, he's going to win the league again. He was undefeated last year. You're trading it for late picks. And I'm like, I'm going to take the chance. His team's pretty old. And even say he did win the league again and I got the 112 and the 212, I would have been all right with the 112 and the 212 for Christian Kirk, right?
Yeah.
So like, I lucked out on the best end scenario, but even if it was the worst case scenario, I still think I would have won that trade because he was desperate to get his team better, right? Because he was like, I'm in the window. He knew it. His team was old. He drafted his team to win right now. So it was like second or third year of the league. So he was in win now mode. So I'm like, I'm going to take advantage here. So that's something you got to look for. I'll be quiet. Let you guys jump back in. Sorry about rambling.
That's okay. That's okay. Before we move on to our final discussion point, I just want to go back to, for my personal opinion, how veterans fit into this rebuilding puzzle and equation, if you will. Because I personally think that it's a balance, right? Yes, you don't want to sell and give away premium assets and picks that could legitimately help you start your rebuild. But at the same time, I think buying cheap veterans that could give you actual talent and production in the meantime never hurts. So I think it's a balance in that sense.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I got a quick question for you guys. I'm going to throw it to you real quick.
Yeah.
So if I'm in a full rebuild, like I have one of my teams I just was talking about, I'm in a full rebuild. I traded Derrick Henry. I traded David Montgomery. This is not this last season. It was the year before leading in this year. I knew I was done. I mean, I had zero running. I was basically starting with LaQuint Allen every week. This tells you like where I was at. That's how bad it was. But I knew it was going to be terrible when I traded them. So instead of taking running backs, even though I really liked last year's running back class, I just went full wideout and I took all early declare wideouts, like young guys, because I figured I was a couple years away. How do you approach that? Are you like, would you pass on running backs if you know it's like for sure a 2, 3, 4 year rebuild? Are you passing at running backs going, by the time he like hits his peak, I'm probably gonna finally just be getting good when he like starts turning that age corner? Or do you go, no, I don't care. I'm just gonna take the best player out there. It doesn't matter to me how long I think the rebuild is. I'm going best guy, whether it's running back, wide receiver, quarterback, tight end. How do you approach that on like a full-on rebuild?
Yeah, I think JT, like nothing against you or anybody else, but I just think I would still go BPA, still go best player available at that point. Because I think if you go with that aforementioned first situation that you just mentioned, I personally think at that point you're just overthinking it a bit. Like that's just getting too technical, in my opinion. Like you need to restart your rebuild at some point. I don't think it matters. Position, I need this, I need that. You just need talented best players at the end of the day.
Yeah, Kyle, are you on that same boat? You kind of like, you're like, yeah, I'm not really worried about position on the rebuild. I'm just going best guy I can get. And I'm not worried about, hey, this is a 23-year-old running back and I might not be good till he's 27. Is that too far down the line to be thinking, or do you just go, I want the best guys, and then if I need to make a move, I know I'll just trade that guy away if I have to.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm on Aiden's boat there. I'm a BPA guy as well. You got to draft the talent. The talent's there. You got a better shot at landing a better prospect in these drafts. Definitely. So even though you don't need a running back, if you get a receiver and you don't really need him, but he ends up being a star, well, you could trade some of your other players to get that running back. And there are a lot, in my opinion, running backs are easier to find than wide receivers that are top tier talent.
Well, that's fair. Finishing off with the final kind of conversation point, if you will, for the night, we shift over to what everyone loves to talk about, rank, and debate this time of year, rookies. Because let's be honest, for our purposes tonight, the rookie draft is absolutely crucial, quintessential to rebuilding rosters and rebuilding teams as a whole. So, Kyle, since you're a guest, I want to finish off the last question of the night with you here.
Sure.
Not talking about this class in particular, just from an overarching, general sense, just philosophical approach. No specific class purview. Should a rebuilding team be aggressive in terms of trading up or around the board, or should they practice patience and wait and value quantity over quality?
I would say, how about somewhere in between, Aiden?
That's
a
fair.
Rebuilding team, yes, they should be aggressive, but selectively. Mm-hmm. You don't want to just YOLO future picks, right? Just
throw them out, yeah.
You don't want to YOLO just to move up, but you also don't want to sit back either and just miss out on opportunity after opportunity. You trade up when there's a clear tier break, okay? When the last player in the tier is left, go up and get them. Be aggressive. A player that's falling in the draft that shouldn't be falling, be aggressive. Go up there and get them. Be patient when there's really no real difference with, say, the next 7 to 8 guys are on the board. You're not getting a real difference maker in this situation. Don't move up, say, from the 208, move up to the 203 when you're in this tier, when you're in this flat tier range of guys, because you're essentially overpaying at the end of the day. Do the complete opposite of that. If you're at the 203, trade down to the 208, pick up some extra picks along the way, get yourself some more shots at a star. In a rebuild, I'll pay up in tier breaks, but once that board kind of flattens out, I want more lottery tickets, not one slightly better one.
Yeah, JT, how do you personally approach and have any thoughts on that when it comes to aggressiveness in a rebuild versus staying patient?
Yeah, I agree with Kyle on there. Now, there's certain times I'll go the opposite approach, but it's like if there's a player dropping that I absolutely love, I'll make the move. I'll make an aggressive move. So a perfect example was last year. I love Luther Burden. Anybody who ever heard me or listened to me on one podcast last year heard me talk about Luther Burden pretty much every show. I mean, I don't think there was a show I didn't talk about Luther Burden last year. So when I had leagues where I saw him dropping, I was immediately looking to trade up. If I was like middle of the pack and he was dropping till like late first, early second, I was aggressively moving up to make sure I could get him. Just because I thought legitimately if he would have came out the year before, he wasn't eligible. But if he would have been, I thought he was a clear-cut top 15 NFL pick, and I thought he would have been a top 5 fantasy pick for sure. So I was like, he fell because of the draft capital, a little bit everything else. Things just didn't go well at Missouri that last year. I was like, this guy is way better than people are getting credit for. So I was moving up. And that was one of the few situations where I was legitimately trading like 2026 firsts. If I was like a late first, I was trading those 2026 firsts for an early second and maybe a third, because I was like, you're like, well, you're trading a first for a second and a third. I'm like, yeah, because I liked last year's class so much. So I was like, I'll trade a 26 first for a 25 second and third, because there were so many guys I liked and I wanted Burden. So if there's a guy you love, I don't mind making that move up to make sure you get that guy. I don't do it very often. So I'm like with Kyle, I'm like, most of the time I'd rather move back, especially I'm at like 2-1, 2-2, and there's not a guy I love there. If I can move back and get like 2 second rounders, like a 2-5 and a 2-8 for the 2-2, I'm doing that most of the time, almost every time, unless there's a guy there that I'm ready to I've been dying for, and he's on my list and he gets to me. If he doesn't, I'm looking to possibly move down and get extra picks. That's just me. But I feel like because of my analysis and how much I watch college football, I feel like I know players better than a lot of the guys in certain leagues I'm in. Not all, because I'm in some pretty heavy hitter leagues where everybody knows a ton. But those other leagues, I feel like I can move down a bit and get some guys to fall to me that maybe wouldn't fall in other leagues. So that's when I'm like looking at that. So if I'm like, this would be a tough year to make that move, to be honest with you, because I do think 27 is going to be loaded. So it'd be very hard for me to move up this year and trade away a 27 pick. Now, I did it in one league. I'll say it real quick. I traded 127 first round pick in 50 dynasty leagues I'm in or whatever. I traded 127 first round pick. And the only reason I did it was I'd already traded my 26 pick away to get Luther Burden. And I needed a little bit of help at wideout down the stretch in a league that I was the number 1 scoring team, but I was in 3rd place overall in record. Big money league, home league. I made the move and went out and got Chris Olave. And my thinking was, I was like, I love 27, but if I can win this title, it's worth it. Even if I eat a guy that I was like, oh, it gets to be a 27. I was like, I wish I had that pick. If I win the league, it's worth it for me, especially because I traded up and got another young guy. I didn't go old. I got a young guy that I knew I was going to get multiple years out of. That way I made the move. And you know what? It worked out for me because Chris Olave, despite everything that went wrong in New Orleans, he came through down the stretch in the early part of the playoffs for me in fantasy last year. So he helped me win a title. So for me in that position, it was worth it. But I was thinking hard before I made that move, to be honest with you. I was like, this is the only one I'm giving up. This is the only 27 I'm giving up. And it was because I knew that I was one wideout away from making the big rush. And that's because I had like guys like BTJ who just were not performing at that point. I was like, I got to get somebody that's giving me points now. I can't keep starting guys that are hurting me. So there are times to make those moves, but like you got to know when that time is. And sometimes it works out, and sometimes you're really pissed when you make that move, because I've done moves like that before and they bit me hard. 2 years later, I was like, God, why did I do that?
We all have those moments. Well, guys, great, interesting, lively discussion going over every single aspect and avenue you can think of for rebuilding teams. Hope that was great advice for everyone out there. But before we get out of here for tonight, we're going to be doing our weekly buy/sell segment for Dynasty purposes, of course, here on Dynasty 365. JT, I'll start with you. As always, there are no position parameters for this. Who is one player you are buying in Dynasty right now as we sit here tonight?
So a guy, I know I've seen other people say it out there. I know we talked about it on last week, and I felt like it was a full-on Jaguars show. We talked about nothing but the Jags. So I'm like, we're avoiding those guys this week for me, because that's all we did was talk about Jaguars players. I think Marvin Harrison. I know this seems like a pretty easy, like, go buy Marvin Harrison. But I think Marvin Harrison, I would buy him sooner rather than later if you can, because right now there's a lot of question marks around Arizona, right? New coaching staff. We don't know who the quarterback is. We assume it's not going to be Kyler Murray with everything that's happened. So if it isn't him, who is it? So you could probably buy him a little cheaper now, because everyone's like, what's going to happen there, right? So if you watched Arizona games, which I assume a lot of people did not, unless they're an Arizona fan, I think Marvin Harrison was better than his stats were last year. Kyler Murray missed him on so many
wide
passes.
Open,
like wide open, missed him on passes. And then it got to the point where people like started showing clips of like
highlight reel open.
Harrison, like, oh, like he like stopped running on that route. He stopped it. And it looked like he was so used to him not throwing him the ball or not being, he's like, oh, he's not going to throw it to me. I'm open. And then all of a sudden he would chuck it to him after he wasn't looking at him the whole game. And he'd be like, oh no. And he'd like start running again and then like overthrow him. It was just a little bit, it was a mess last year. I still believe in the talent. So if I can go get him 26 first, I don't know if that's going to be enough to do it, but I'm selling a 26 first for him. Anything outside of the 1-1, I'm probably trading for Marvin Harrison, even though I do like some of these wide receivers.
Awesome, yeah.
But if you're going early and you don't know where these guys are going to land yet, I still like Marvin Harrison. I'm in on him. If I can give up a couple picks, if I get somebody in a rebuild and I'm like, hey, I'll give you like my first, my second, my third this year for Marvin Harrison, they're like, okay. So do 2 seconds. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
So it might take you more than that. Even though I love 27 and it's loaded, if I'm in a rebuild, probably not. But if I'm in a team that's like right on that edge where I'm like, ooh, I made the playoffs, I just need like 1 or 2 more studs, I would be willing to maybe give up a 27 first for Harrison, knowing that like he might put me into that top 4 in my league. You're taking a chance. You're taking a chance because you don't know QB, you don't know everything else. But I think he's going to be cheaper now than once the draft happens. If you wait till the actual draft happens and see these landing spots, there's a chance if these wideouts don't get very good landing spots, say Lemon, Tyson, Tate don't get very good landing spots, then I think his price goes back up because people are worried about the landing spots. But right now, everybody wants the pick, right? Everybody wants to make the pick. So I'm going to sell the pick if I can sell the pick.
JT, I just want to piggyback off you real quick, Aiden, and then we'll go back to you. But I just got to point this out because I love Marvin Harrison Jr. as well, JT. I did some research on Marvin Harrison Jr. for an article that I wrote for Fantasy Pros. I have him as a buy low as well. Did you know, like, because everyone points to Michael Wilson's great year, right? He had an amazing year. But in the 5 games that Harrison missed, Michael Wilson scored no fewer than 16.4 PPR points. He was on fire. But when both receivers were on the field together, Michael Wilson scored 7.5 PPR points per game. So it just goes to show you, in my opinion, who the real alpha that is there in Arizona. And it's Marvin Harrison Jr. I love that call, JT.
And Wilson had some great games.
He did.
Like, that's not it. But it was because it was like they had less guys and he got force fed, especially when Harrison was out. People started like all over McBride. They were like double teaming McBride like crazy, taking a linebacker safety over top on him, and they had to find somebody else to go to. Brissett was just slinging it. If someone's out, which we all know this, there's always someone who bails too early in a league, right? They're like mad about the guy. Yeah. I thought I was getting the Lamborghini, right? Remember when they told me I was getting the Lamborghini? Now they're mad because he's not been a Lamborghini just yet. You know what I mean? He's been a 1988 Corvette so far.
But he's never been lower.
He's gonna be that Lamborghini. Yeah. So if you still believe, you got to go now. You got to go now.
Yeah, I agree. I love that call from JT and then Kyle, you adding in, because the fact that I believe he is much more talented than his stats and situation in Arizona would suggest on the surface level and metrically. Kyle, flipping over to you real quick. Who is a player you would advocate to be buying right now in Dynasty?
Man, other than Marvin Harrison Jr., I also really like Ricky Pearsall.
I knew it.
Yeah, if you follow me on X at KZ1180, that's no secret. I've been tweeting.
You're loving him, yeah.
I really am. You know, he's had an unfortunate start to his career with the injuries. People are like labeling him as injury prone, but he's actually not, man. In college, in 5 years, he played 55 games in college. He's just had a bad luck start, in my opinion. You know, in San Francisco last year, he led the team in receiving yards per game with 58.7 yards per game. He's potentially the wide receiver 1 next year for San Francisco, and he's not being priced that way right now, guys. Brandon Ayuk, missing in action. Jawan Jennings, entering free agency. He could be gone. George Kittle, 32, coming off an Achilles injury. I am all in on Ricky Pearsall. I don't care if they draft a young receiver here in the draft. Ricky Pearsall to me is a screaming buy. I would trade, if I have Michael Pittman, I would trade him. Devontae Adams, I would get younger with Devontae Adams and go get Ricky Pearsall.
Interesting.
Even Christian Watson or Jordan Addison, if you want to buy and draft picks, right now he might be a little high in rookie drafts, especially you, JT. You love your rookie picks. I'm seeing him going right now in that early second round. I would probably start at like the 205, 206 range to try to get him, but right now he's costing about the 201 for him, and it might be a slight overpay at the 201, but I would do it. Yep, I was just going to say.
I agree with you. I'm seeing guys that are going to the top of that second round, and I am not in love. Like I've probably done 15 mocks at this point with a bunch of different people, and that early second round, I'm just like. Last year, I loved those early picks because there were certain guys dropping, and you're like, oh, I'm going to get great value. Man, that early second round, I don't love this year. I feel like you're just literally swinging at guys that usually would be late second, early third. And so if I could get Pearsall for that, a guy who hasn't totally performed up to speed, but you're like, we kind of knew he was going to take a little while. And this is still a pretty explosive offense. And like you said, there's a lot of question marks at wide receiver. And they took him in the first round. He has to be the guy that gets the first shot, right? So I'm with you on that. I actually think that's a great buy. And if you can get him, if somebody wants a 2-1, I'll give him the 2-1 for him all day long. I'm all the way up to, man, I 2-1, absolutely. I mean, I'm even depending on league scoring and what happens. Here's the thing is, if there's no tight end premium in your league and you're just in a basic court like tight end league, I love tight ends in this draft. That's one of my favorite positions in this draft. If it's a straight no tight end premium at all, I would rather have Pearsall than the late first round picks because I like a lot of the tight ends in the late first. But if it's no tight end premium, give me Pearsall over those guys all day long.
Yeah, you guys. This is interesting. You guys are going with young year 3 bounce back candidates, both at the receiver position. For my buy candidate here, I'm going to go with the quote unquote boring veteran in many people's eyes in Denver Broncos wide receiver Courtland Sutton. Who's challenging in there for targets? Evan Ingram is completely washed up, likely going to be cut next month in free agency. And then they have these other ancillary pieces that I think are very niche skill set players who do one specific things, one trick ponies, if you will, in the Marvin Mims of the world, Troy Franklin, Pat Bryant, and by no means are high and are very low, relatively low target earners at their respective positions at the wide receiver surrounding Sutton. And most importantly, he gets those money targets. Bo Nix trusts Courtland Sutton immensely in the red zone. And if you get red zone targets, you'll find fantasy success. So if you're a contender or if you're trending and pushing towards being a contender, for all intents and purposes, I would absolutely go out and get Courtland Sutton because I think people are looking at the Broncos are potentially going to draft a receiver like a Casey Concepcion or a Denzel Boston at the very 30th overall, very end of the first round in the draft. So moving over to my sell, I got another Denver Bronco and at the pile on here with the whole consensus on Twitter thing, but I got RJ Harvey. I just published an article last night previewing the free agent RP position. I'll talk about more at the end, but of tonight. I linked a certain very talented bell cow type archetype back to the Denver Broncos. I just don't think RJ Harvey, I mean, Kyle, you saw 11 UCF. He just doesn't have the archetype of a true ever bell cow back in the league. So that's my worry with RJ Harvey. And the Broncos have a pretty decent amount of cap space for an AFC Championship appearance team this past season. So I feel like they're going to go all in the running back position. I get out of RJ Harvey while I can, even in a down running back class such as this year. Kyle, who's your sell at the running back position? And then if you want to touch on any of the guys I talked about as well.
Yeah, this one might shock you guys where I'm going with here. I'm selling him while he's hot, and it's running back Kenneth Walker. He's so hot right now. It is, but he has had such a fabulous playoff run. Mm-hmm. He may be a Seahawk next year. He may not. but you know
No
what he is?
Charbonnet, though.
Right. Yeah. But I like George Halani. I kind of want to talk about
He's
him
pretty
in
decent,
another.
yeah.
Yeah. I like him going forward. We could talk about him on another episode. But
sure.
Kenneth Walker his value has never been higher. He's 25 years old, so his shelf life is approaching. He's still in a good, I'm not saying he's old by any means, but I'm just saying he's approaching that territory, and I do not think his value will be any higher than it is right now. So I would sell him.
That's
I
a
would
good
sell
point.
him. I would sell him for a 26 first round pick this year because you could probably get
Ooh,
a one. I'm thinking 105, 106 range, and I know it's
probably, yeah.
I know it's a very weak draft class, but if you're in that, I think JT, you mentioned it earlier, that's still in a good range, even in this class, the 105, the 106, the Denzel Boston. I would pull the trigger and get rid of him, get off of him while he's hot right now, because I do not think he'll ever pass the value that he is right now.
Yeah, JT, round us out.
And
here.
I know JT probably agrees with me because he's not really a Kenneth Walker guy, so I think he's right there with me.
I've liked Kenneth Walker more than most people. I've always been frustrated. I never give him enough carries. And then, here's the thing is, Charbonnet finally gets hurt, and we see the real Kenneth Walker. But like you said, we don't know what's going forward. And you're on that Super Bowl high, right? I mean, it doesn't get higher than win MVP in the Super Bowl. So I'm usually a Kenneth Walker buyer, but I'm telling you, Kyle, I'm with you. If you, especially since we're talking rebuild, if your team's not very good and you're in rebuild mode and you have Kenneth Walker, go out and ask for a first and second. Especially if it's like 1.5, give me the 1.5 and the 2.5 for Kenneth Walker. I don't think that's too much. Or even better, ask for a top 5 this year and give me a second and 27. So say they're like, oh, I don't want to sell both my first and my second and 26. You know how some people are. Yeah. It doesn't matter the calculation. They want to have a pick, right? And something early. So I'd rather give up my 26 first and my 27 second. Sold. Boom. Right now, sell that. Because again, by the time your team is good, Kenneth Walker's probably going to be hurting. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he crushes. But if you're in a rebuild, like we've been talking about in this, I'm selling him. He's a guy I'm selling. I think you're right on that. I don't think the price is ever going to be as high as it is right now, unless Seahawks don't re-sign him and he gets a crazy landing spot pre-draft, like he goes to say the Cowboys, because you know how everybody is. Everybody's just been like, Cowboys, there's dying for a running back. So if he went there, I could see his value shooting up, because every Cowboys fan in America is going to go ballistic and want Kenneth Walker. But outside of something like that, I don't know if
can't replace.
I don't think he can get any higher. I really don't. I'm with you on that, Kyle. If you're selling in a rebuild, now's the time. You're right.
Yeah. JT, round us out here, if you would. Who is the guy that you are selling in Dynasty at this moment?
So I'm going to give you just a little bit. I'm going to give you a little bit of a range here, as opposed to just one guy.
Yeah, go for it.
So Michael Wilson, like Kyle brought up earlier.
This is a good one.
If I could sell Michael Wilson, I'm selling Michael Wilson right now.
Heck yeah.
I'll take 2-1 for him. I'll take 2-2, 2-3. Even if I don't even like this draft class, I'm still going to sell him for that.
Take the shot.
Because I'd rather, if I could get, I'm just going to tell you right now, if I could go Omar Cooper over Michael Wilson, I want Omar
Instant,
Cooper
yeah.
over Michael Wilson. So, I think Michael Wilson is decent. I think he's a solid player. I think we saw the prime of what he's probably going to be in those games. I have a hard time feeling like he keeps that up, whether it's with the Cardinals or someone else. So he's a guy I'm selling. But also, if I'm in this rebuild, the guys I want to possibly look at, and I know they're young, and usually we say don't sell young guys. If I can sell a Zay Flowers or Jameson Williams, and I can get a contender who is right there, right? They feel like they're a piece away, and I can get multiple picks and hopefully 27 or 28 picks. Maybe these guys are here. Here's my favorite move. I'll just round it out with this. Contender. He was contending last year. He either won or finished top 2. He already sold his 26 picks, right? Because he sold them for guys to win last year. So now he's kind of up against it. I don't have 26s to sell. I only got 27, 28s. They don't want to sell, but that's all they got. All right. Are you going to keep the window going? Or are you going to try to win another time? Can you sell a Zay Flowers, a Jameson Williams? Can you get multiple picks in 27, 28? Can you get a 27 first and a 28 second? Maybe. Can you get multiple? I'm willing to make that move if I'm a rebuild a couple years out. Those are the teams I want to look for, to be honest with you, because they'll sell you a 26. I'm almost sure about it. But you got to find those teams that already sold all their 26. They don't have any option. They want to win. I only got 27, 28. And maybe he goes, I'll take a 27 first. Oh, no, I heard the 27 class is awesome. I can't do it. Okay, well, if I can't get a 27 first, give me your 28 first and your 28 second. Or give me your 28 first and your 27 second. Spread it out 2 classes. Now you hit those guys and what should be 2 better classes coming up right when you need them on the rebuild. So that's where I would be looking at guys like that. A Jameson Williams, a Zay Flowers, a Michael Wilson. Michael Wilson for sure, but I like Jameson Williams. I like Zay Flowers. I think they're solid players. They're young still. I still think they're going to be good. But if I'm not contending and I can get a couple picks down the road, I'm probably considering it.
Yeah, guys, those are all great points. That was our weekly buy / sell segment. Thank you for all those great player takes and debates. Well, this was a fun show tonight for all of you watching out there. Number 1, we appreciate the support as always. But number 2, as a reminder, please head over to fantasyandframes.com to check out all of our latest article content from the perspective of every single fantasy football avenue you can think of out there right now, as well as our first batch of rookie rankings from both an individual analyst perspective and consensus combined perspective are now live on the site as well. Shoot the Gap will be back next week with not 1 but 2 episodes on the docket. First on Tuesday, next Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern, we'll be running through a 4-round 2 QB format rookie mock draft to switch that up a bit. And then next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, we will be discussing how the NFL Combine influences prospect value in Dynasty and what metrics matter and what nuance goes into that. First of all, Kyle, let's hear it. Where can people find you? What do you have going on right now, content-wise, whatever you want to put out there?
Yeah, actually, it's really good that you had me on tonight because I actually have an article coming out here on Fantasy and Frames related to tonight's show. Yep, I did 5 common mistakes that new Dynasty players make, and it's mistakes that you don't want to make, but they are often made. So check that out. It should be coming out here, I don't know, the next few days to a week. I don't want to put any pressure on Jorge, our amazing, great editor there. It doesn't matter if you're a seasoned vet in this article or you're new to Dynasty first year plan. It hits all types of like Dynasty players. So be on the look for that very soon. I also have an article out right now on fantasypros.com where I made a list of 5 third-year players that are worth targeting. So go check that out.
Ricky Pearsall's on there.
Yeah, of course. Ricky Pearsall is on there, as is Marvin Harrison Jr., JT. And I actually do give some examples on that article for some trade ideas to go get these guys, draft picks, players. Go check it out. Just simple Google third-year players, Fantasy Pros. My name will come up. Kyle Ziegler. Click on that, and it gives you some pretty good ideas.
Yeah, JT, quickly, what do you have going on going forward?
Yeah, just say, Kyle, love that. Second and third year players is my favorite buys. Like, I'm going to be all over that article. And again, if you play in Dynasty leagues, go look back at that article Kyle's got coming out because you're going to get ideas and things you forgot about when you first started. You're like, oh, that's a good idea, especially if I get a new startup. Absolutely. Or I am in like leagues I'm trying to rebuild. Like, let me look at these things. So that's great. For me, rankings should be coming up on Fantasy and Frames pretty quickly with all the rookies, everything on there. If you remember over at DLF, I've got all kinds of prospect articles up there. I've got my top 75 Devies. So if you're like in a Devy league or you want to kind of check out some guys that might be out in 27 or 28, like we just talked about. I've got all those, my top 75 guys ranking there. IDP, always got to shoot it out for Shoot the Gap. I got my top 150 Dynasty IDP guys, and we just cranked out the 2026 IDP rookies on DLF. So I have my top 25 defensive rookies on there. And then me and Jorge going to start doing some mock drafts coming up this week. On Thursday, we got our first IDP mock. So if you're in IDP leagues, come out and start learning about these rookie defensive players. I think it's going to be a heavy defensive draft. Really heavy. I think it's going to be very nice for IDP leagues. Not as great for regular Dynasty leagues, but for IDP, I'm really liking what can be possible. So check me and Jorge out later tonight on the show on Shoot the Gap. And then tomorrow night, we'll be doing our mock draft on that. And then I'll be back next week for the 2QB. I just did a 2QB 2-point tight end premium mock like 2 hours ago. Gonna bring a little of that knowledge into that show we talk next week, because it's really interesting, because it changes the board big time when you go 2QB 2.0 tight end premium. It really changes things up.
Yeah. As it relates to myself, first of all, you can follow me on Twitter/X, as always, at AWineGarner13 for any additional thoughts and or takes over there. But I alluded to this during the show a little bit ago when you were talking about some rebuilding tactics. I just published an interesting, fun article on fantasyandframes.com literally just last night, where I preview part 1 of 2. I preview the RP position for free agency for fantasy purposes in a few weeks at the running back position, but I put a fun twist in it. I explore 2 different avenues for each player. What would this player's fantasy outlook be in 2026 if they stayed with their current team? And then what would their 2026 fantasy outlook be like if they switch teams? And I also give you that specific landing spot that would make sense. So please check that out, as well as JT's work and Kyle's work that they already mentioned. Of course, for myself, for Kyle, for JT, we will see you next week, everybody.